Donald Trump, of course, is blaming his opponent in what is a very soon, 50 days out, election. But is there some truth to his statement about the rhetoric, frankly, from all sides of American politics right now and just how hot it is?
Yeah. Well, the first thing about Trump's statement is that it really intensified, I think, the vitriol, right? It was not about toning down a conversation in any way. Sure, the hateful political rhetoric flows in all kinds of directions. But of course, with the former president, it's very hard for him to make a case that it's simply the left to blame. We saw January 6th and what happened after his rally speech. We've heard him look at what's happening in Springfield, Ohio, after the hateful comments that he and his running mate, J.D. Vance, have made about Haitian immigrants eating pets there. He's bashed the media as enemy of the people. So does he have a point? A little bit of a one. I mean, there are certainly elements that cross ideological boundaries that are spewing all kinds of vile. And in a country awash in guns, someone who's mentally ill, we're seeing what we have now. But certainly the former president has got to be considered part of this equation, especially after January 6th.
Mm-hmm. So this is a potentially very dangerous moment. When you consider all of this, Mathieu, the rhetoric that we've heard from Donald Trump today, he's essentially blaming Democrat rhetoric for this. Democrats call him a threat to democracy. Elon Musk on Twitter asking why no one is even trying to assassinate Biden/Kamala, as he has since deleted. Bomb threats are going to schools in Springfield, Ohio, because of the rhetoric about Haitian immigrants eating pets. Mathieu, how does this end?
Well, unfortunately, first of all, I'm a historian, and I have a hard enough time interpreting the past, let alone predicting how it ends. But it's still an important question. My concern is that there's a high potential for it to get worse after the election. I think that would be the most kind of dangerous point on the immediate horizon, because what happens if Trump loses, or what happens if he wins? I think we've got to go back to the late 1960s and early 1970s when the country was in the middle of the Vietnam War, thousands of people dying, riots, over 100 cities exploded after Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated, Robert F. Kennedy was killed. There was a national commission on the causes and prevention of violence. So we are in, I think, maybe the most fraught politically violent moment since really in 50, 60 years. And it's going to maybe take the work of a generation to get out of it.
Well, in 50, 60 years ago, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have social media platforms in which all of this could be propagated around the world with such speed. How does that actually make the difference here? Does this make it an exponentially more dangerous moment than anything before it, just because of the nature of the technology that allows it to be facilitated?
Yeah. My view of social media is that it's a tool, and it can be used for all kinds of purposes, right? As you just quoted about Elon Musk, right? It can be used for hateful ends, and it does turbocharge, I think, conspiracy theories, racist tropes. It accelerates the pace sometimes of politically violent rhetoric and actions. But I don't think that we can, because the reality was, the United States in the late 60s, early 70s was a more violent place. Gerald Ford, 17 days apart, September 1975, was the subject of 2 assassination attempts. The United States has had a pretty substantial history of political violence. And I don't want to minimize the role of social media. It certainly supercharges what we're seeing, but I don't think it really captures quite the root or all the root causes of what's happening now.
It does underscore how quickly the news cycle is moving here, though, Mathieu. We thought one of the top stories today would be Donald Trump posting, "I hate Taylor Swift." That was at 10:44 in the morning. Things changed pretty quickly after that. At what point is the voter too exhausted to make a judgment?
Well, look, on one level, I think a lot of people are disgusted, they're fed up. And this, I think, raises a larger important point, which is national institutions in particular, our governing and political institutions have been damaged and battered over the past decade. And the ability for those institutions to hang together, right, to allow the country to settle differences peacefully at the ballot, not with the bullet, that I think is the great question. And I fear that people turning off from politics, people being disgusted with it, is just going to drive the extremes, make them more extreme, and also empower them and make it more difficult for the center to hold.